Quick, what's the worst anime you've ever seen? Chances are you thought of a show that's not actually on this list, because while people say these shows are bad, truth be told, they're not even good enough to make an impact. Yes, true shit requires you to care about the story before inevitably taking a plummet to earth. That's why today I want to tell you about the truly worst anime, not one created by incompetence, low-budget tax evasion, nor by being handled by a bad studio, but one created with actual malice, a sequel with dedicated hatred towards everything the original was built upon. Let me tell you about Kemono Friends Season 2. Okay, so you've never heard about Kemono Friends. That's likely because this one season single-handedly killed an anime that was Japan's Anime of the Year in 2017. Comic kept blowing up with tons of fan art, merch, collabs. It was pretty big. Maybe not in the West where we like our shonen slop, but in the East, this was a loved series. However, Kemono Friends originally had a troubled past, so let's look from the beginning. This was planned as a potential multimedia series. Kadokawa wanted games, merch, concerts, everything for these animal girls, the Kemono Friends, and to help spearhead the project they set Mine Yoshizaki, the creator of Sergeant Frog, a show that I never actually seen, but I know like one guy who has. Okay, so first in 2015, there was a manga with a single volume, and the art is pretty good, but it's not really worth talking about, or very memorable, and from my understanding was actually just a flop. And as we never got another volume, so, the start's not looking very good. Next up, we had a mobile game, and that was also just a huge failure. So the last hope was the anime. But while the anime was greenlit, the mobile game had already been end of serviced. The manga had failed, and the franchise looked to be dead. Kadokawa, wanting nothing to do with this failure anymore, threw this project at a small animation studio, Yao Yorozu, owned by amateur animator Tatsuki, with a couple of key things that need to be in the show, and the rest is up to him. It doesn't matter though, because hopefully it would come out, go unnoticed, and sink into the infinite sea of dog shit shows with fives a mouth that you've never heard of, but God knows I've seen quite a few of these. The first episode airs, and it's rough. See, Tatsuki had basically no money, a staff of 10 people making the show, and a quick deadline. In the opening, a bus goes over a hill, and they didn't even have enough time to animate the wheels. However, it wasn't actually that bad. On to the next week, another episode airs, and it starts getting some traction. Suddenly, there's fan art of this jank-ass CG show. We have giants like Asanagi making fan art of the otter, and suddenly the gates are open. The anime goes on to completely revitalize this franchise and bring it into the success Kadokawa originally imagined, but there's a problem. You see, Yoshizaki made the franchise, but now it's Tatsuki's the head of it, basically. He's making JRA collabs, noodle promos, pushing the franchise higher and higher. Not good, so Tatsuki gets removed from Kadokawa's payroll and is no longer allowed to work on the franchise. Now, the smoke alarms are going up with people in an uproar about Tatsuki, but some people are still willing to see what Yoshizaki's cooking as Kemono Friends Season 2 was announced. Now, as an aside, I'm not 100% certain if it was intentional or not, but goddamn does it seem so. Kemono Friends Season 2 was set to air the same season as Tatsuki's own anime project, Kumurikusa. My headcanon was that this was to bury the old creator of the series he helped build up and prove that Yoshizaki's series was just destined to be successful, Tatsuki or not. Didn't exactly play out that way, as Kumurikusa literally sold the second highest number of Blu-rays that season, proving that Tatsuki was the key to the success. But this isn't about that. This is about Season 2 of Kemono Friends, so let's continue. Groundwork done, we now know the situation, but what's the end result? First off, Season 1 ended with Serval and Kaban having ended a grand adventure, but sailing into the horizon to find more lands. Season 2 starts with this guy, Kuru, and he's accompanied by a new face, Caracal and Serval? Same one? Same one. What happened to Kaban from the first season? Is this a prequel or an alternate timeline? No, we learned that at some point after leaving the island before Season 2 airs, Serval gets eaten by one of the cerulean mobs that are in the show and loses all of her memories, and Kaban abandons her. This revelation is shown during the ending, where Kaban and Serval are together looking at Caracal and Kuru, and Kaban looks at Serval and says, "We used to make a good team." only for Serval to literally not pay attention and then decide to run off towards Karakau and the Kiryu while the season 1 opening plays. I don't think I've actually seen a worse scene ever, and I'm approaching over 800 animes finished, many of the worst, but this one moment was something. An acknowledgement of the old series and a spitting in the face of everything it stood for. Okay, so we have one scene, but what about the rest of the show? A methodical picking apart of all things the original series stood for and what made it popular. Firstly, the overall theme of the first season was building each other up and helping the people around you in your community. It's a semi-kid show, so yeah, it's not that deep, but season 2 has characters actively being bullied for being bad at something and just an overall nastier tone. Then there's this dog girl, and that was the point where I actually had to go rewatch the original series because I thought that maybe I was the problem. Maybe I just don't like this franchise anymore, and that was wrong because I ended up having Kemono Friends Season 1 be my favorite anime of all time. See, this dog used to be in the kids area of a zoo before being turned into a friend, so she still longs for human attention. Turns out Kiryu is the only human, so she hires some friends to kidnap him and bring him to her. Okay, so does Kiryu have to help this dog in any way? No, Kiryu just wants to get the hell out of here. And when he meets up with Karakau and Serval, they're jumped by an evil tiger friend that the dog protects them from. Covered in bruises and beat up, this dog looks at Kiryu before being told to go back home because the show is about Kiryu, Serval, and Karakau. Not really about the dog, so not satisfied with how awful of a show was being produced, though. Don't worry, it gets worse. The after credits of this episode is the dog sitting in a dark room all alone in the park that you know is abandoned, looking at the pictures drawn by the kids that once frequented that area. God damn, what a bad show. Far from the original themes of friendship, in fact, into the why would you even make this territory, we have one last example to look at. Incompetent mimicry. See, in season 1 of Kemono Friends, there's this very powerful scene where in the first episode, Serval tries to teach Kaban how to climb a tree, and Kaban shows Serval how to use a paper airplane to distract these cerulean mobs. Later in the series, Kaban masters fire, but Serval, being a cat, is afraid of the fire. But during the climax, disaster hits, and Serval is in danger. To save her, Kaban has to climb up a tree to jump onto this large cerulean, but then she gets herself caught rescuing Serval. Now, in order to save Kaban, Serval uses a burning paper airplane to distract the big cerulean so that they can stage a rescue attempt, showing that our duo have not only relied on each other, but grown from each other throughout the series. A pretty powerful message indeed, but season 2... this shit was so retarded, my jaw hit the floor when I saw it. Episode 1, there's this duck girl. She makes people line up in front of this small-ass crack in the ground before jumping, not walking, but jumping over it. Okay, in their credit, this scene was stupid enough for you to remember it, but for the wrong reason. And now we find ourselves at the climax where the friends are fighting a big cerulean on a boat that's sinking, and there's this evil tiger friend, and none of it really matters, but the boat is breaking apart. Kiryu is running on the deck towards the exit, but then is faced with a 6-inch crack in the ground between him and safety. They take the time to tell you that this is some character growth about being more brave or something as he jumps over this small crack and then leaves the ship with everyone, trying to tie the beginning and the end together in the same way with an execution that is actually abysmal, right before the boat sinks into the ocean with the evil tiger, who we learned wasn't actually evil, just mind-controlled, which they kind of snapped out of right before the boat sank, but nobody gave a fuck about him, so they die. And then the Kaban scene from earlier. Yeah, this is truly an awful show. Much like people watching One Punch Man Season 3 have the right to call that a truly horrid anime. Why? Because it's a franchise you care about, being desecrated beyond recognition. If this wasn't Kemono Friends, if that wasn't One Punch Man Season 3, near 0 people would have watched these shows. They would have instantly sunk into the endless sea of seasonal garbage that nobody remembers and been given a mid-6 on Mal, with maybe like 5,000 people have seen it. Thanks for staying till the end. If you guys like this, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. It really gives me the motivation to keep making these. These long edited videos are quite the time sink. Don't think I ever realized how long they actually take. So a little bit of motivation from you guys will help me keep going and maybe make more content for you guys. So yeah,